Okay, we're back. We're talking about prop governors. Propeller governors. All right, so we've had a nice overview. We can maybe take some notes. I say maybe because I can't control what you do. All right, so what is the purpose of a propeller governor? It's an RPM sensing device which responds to a change in engine RPM by directing oil pressure to or from a prop to change the blade angle. So an RPM sensing device that responds to a change in engine, in engine RPM by directing, wow, I'm just going to write two different things, by directing say engine oil under pressure either to the prop or from the prop to change blade angle.
Should it be an RPM sensing device and an oil pump?
Well, yeah, I could. An RPM sensing device and oil pump. That's fine. And oil pump. That's why I added under pressure over here. Let's see, where am I? B, a constant speed propeller. A constant speed prop holds the engine at a constant RPM by varying the propeller pitch. Wasn't me. All right, so once we get into the RPM controllable range, then the RPM will be constant regardless of aircraft speed or throttle changes. So remember, once I've got my RPM set in the aircraft, I can start changing the throttle, and all I'm going to really do is change what? Manifold pressure. The prop is going to do everything it can to keep that RPM set. If I decide to pull back on the yoke to go into a climb in a fixed pitch prop, what's my RPM going to do? Drop. But in this case, RPM should try and stay exactly the same. If I do a nosedive, it should try to. Now I say try to because there's a limited range, right? It's not a magic aircraft. If I point it straight up in the air, it's not going to. It's going to die off a little bit there, a lot. So it has to work within its range of operation. Talk about basic components. All right, so we have the booster gear pump. What kind of pump is that? Constant displacement. What kind of constant displacement? Gear type. All right. So a governor takes oil pressure, takes, let's say, engine oil, and boosts the pressure to about 175 to 275 psi. That's a very general statement. Remember I told you about the Continental 240 that had to be much lower than that, and there are some aircraft that are going to go outside of that. The pump is a constant displacement. Gear type pump. How is it driven? Engine driven by gears, so it can't, it's not supposed to slip. So it is directly connected to the engine driven gears. Directly connected to engine driven gears. To engine driven gears. Let's see. One may be accessory case mounted. Which a lot of Lycomings are, or crankcase mounted. I tend to like the way Continental does their accessory or their mounting a little bit more. With Continental, they run it up in the front, which isn't always easy to get to. But the nice thing about that is it's right next, so the oil comes out of the gallery right into the. You can't even see it. It's it's buried in the crankcase. Goes into the governor. Does the thing in the governor, comes out of the governor. There's no external lines. They're just ports machined into the crankcase. It comes in and out, no external lines whatsoever. Lycoming tends to run their governors out back in the accessory case, and the oil's got to get to where? All the way up to the front to the prop. So they use more often than not external, especially the four cylinders. They use external lines in the four cylinders. So engine oil pressure comes in through the accessory case, picked up in the governor, then it goes through a line that goes out and all the way to the front of the engine and back into the engine. And so you have this high pressure oil in this line. Can you guess what kind of problems have been created? So leaks, blowouts.
Is it just regular braided line?
It is not. And so there became an airworthiness directive against this line. So I don't know if it was originally aluminum or some mechanics were actually putting aluminum lines on with aluminum fittings, but the airworthiness directive required specific clamping, if I remember correctly, but the line has to be stainless steel with black fittings on it. Anybody know what the black fittings are telling me? Instead of blue? Material. So let's try again. What are the blue AN fittings? You guys? They're aluminum and black is steel. So you had to make sure that all of the fittings, including the elbow going into the crankcase, are all black. They're steel. And that's an area that you definitely want to inspect for leaks. Because what happens if you are flying along and that propeller governor line breaks? What's that? All the oil. All the oil is going to be gone very, very quickly. And then what position is the prop going to go into? You'll be able to tell because the prop will stop moving. Yeah, it'll go eee, and then stop. All right. I have a pressure relief valve. Very important. To prevent too much pressure, pressure relief valve allows excess pressure to be returned to the inlet side of the pump. Allows excessive pressure to be returned to the inlet side of the pump. Then we got our flyweights. Flyweights are connected to the drive shaft of the governor. Connected to the drive shaft of the governor. Speaking of drive shaft and whatnot, if I said that a governor turned clockwise, which direction I got to look at it? From the drive end. So the direction of rotation of accessories is from the drive end, and the wrench size is not the bolt size, and there's got to be another one in there I keep saying. What? Oh, that's it. And how do you set the idle mixture? Dang it. All right. They are shaped like, oops, don't know, an L or an L. So as the governor speeds up, centrifugal force moves the flyweights which way? Outward. And that I'm just laughing because he answered the question before I could even get it out. So it's going to be the flyweights move out and the pilot valve moves up. But I said, which way it goes? He said, out and up. So yes. So we got here. As governor speeds up, I'm going to just put gov. As the governor speeds up. And what am I going to do with all the time that I've just saved by not having to write governor? Sea world. Okay, as the governor speeds up, centrifugal force moves the flyweights out. And the pilot valve up. And as the gov slows down, loss of centrifugal force, CF, allows the flyweights, well, let me think. Allows the flyweights to move in, lowering the pilot valve. If the governor is on speed, flyweights and speeder spring are in equilibrium. What happens if the speeder spring were to break?
The flyweights would always win.
It'll be overspeed.
Yeah, is that what you guys said?
Yeah, the
Yep.
flyweights would always win.
What's that? Always win. Flyweights always win. They're going to go into overspeed. I like overspeed. They're going to go into overspeed, and the pilot valve is going to come up. And if it's a single engine, then the prop is going to, well, it doesn't matter if it's single or twin, does it? Overspeed's overspeed. So if it's overspeed, then the prop is going to go towards high pitch and try and slow that engine down. All right, let's talk about that pilot valve. Moves up and down to one of three positions. So what are my three positions? Well, we're going to do a little different. Open, OP, wow, can't talk and write at the same time. Open, passages. From the governor to prop, or open passages from prop to drain, and the drain goes back to where? The sump, all right, or block all passages. Which is no oil movement. I guess we have time for this. It's a little over the top is. So the oil route in the engines. So an accessory pad. Accessory pad. So when I say an accessory pad, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's on the accessory case, but it's somewhere on the engine. An accessory pad is a spot that is milled out, holes, studs, set up for an accessory. So if we think about the kind of accessory pads we have accessory pads that are exclusive to magnetos. We have an accessory pad that's for starters, very good one. Sometimes you have one for not all engines, alternator, accessory pad for vacuum pumps, for tack drives, for fuel pumps, and governors. So the governors tend to be a little, well, they all have their own specific need there. Accessory pad mounted governor. Gov uses an external line. Accessory pad. I'm going to change this up. Accessory case. Accessory case mounted pad. Now mounted pad. Governor. Now we're being specific, talking about the back of the engine. And anybody remember which manufacturer tends to use that? All right. So accessory case pad mounted governor uses an external oil line to the prop. I should change that a bit. External oil line to the front of the engine. Well, let's put this front of the engine. Front of engine. That works. And then if we have a crank case mounted governor, it generally speaking has no oil lines. Everything's internal. The oil is directed through the case to a passage in the front main bearing. I should put or oil transfer collar. The COLLAR. An oil hole in the crankshaft. Matches with an oil slot in the main bearing. The crankshaft matches an oil slot in the main bearing. And then oil is transferred through the crankshaft out to the front of the prop, or out the front to the prop. It was transferred through the crank center to the prop. I mentioned this back in 310 that let's see, both TCM and Lycoming, LYC, because I'm going to SeaWorld, have service bulletins or instructions to convert fixed pitch engine to constant speed CS engine. So Tyler, you have a fixed pitch, right?
Yeah.
But I bet, because you have an 0360, you could convert yours to a constant speed if it were allowed by the airframe manufacturer. And to do it would not even really be that hard. So we have a crankshaft. Here's our flange. Here's our first throw. All right, so inside of the crankshaft, got to have an opening. There's my crankshaft. As sad as it might be, you actually have, if you have a fixed pitch propeller, you have a plug up here. Anybody know what a freeze plug is on an engine? It's the exact same thing. So it's a freeze plug. It's a plug that has a little concave shape in it, and you put it inside of the front of the crankshaft and you hammer it flat. That's the only thing that keeps it in place. It's crazy. That thing pops out, you lose all your oil pressure and crash. Back here, near the end back of the, you have another freeze plug. It's a little more permanent. It's got a hole in it, and that allows oil to come in. I don't even remember how to change you. There we go. Oil will come in through that one that spot in the main bearing, fill this up, and then leak out. It actually leaks out that way, sorry. So it leaks out, and everybody's happy. Well, if you want to convert this to a constant speed, what you do is you knock this out, and most important, you put a plug here, because that's critical. Plug this up, install the governor, run the line forward, plumb it into the case, And voila. You've got a constant speed. And now the oil pressure goes that way. That's all there is to it. Huh? You don't need a new one.
Minor details.
20 grand.
There's props just laying around the airport. Just sitting there mounted on the front of somebody's engine that would.
Or bent just slightly.
So, yeah.
Fix some today,
I know. Talk to Juan, and he fixed one up today. Had a nice little ding in it. Sorry about that. All right. So yeah, you can convert back and forth. What you don't want to do is convert the other way and put the plug right here and forget to put that in because the oil pressure comes in and it's got to blow one of those two things out. And that's threaded and that's not. So I think that one loses. And I've told you before, there's also problems with sludge getting built up in these propellers, especially if it's got a fixed pitch. Sludge builds up in here and because it's like a sludge tube. And when the sludge builds up in there, what it does is it traps moisture. I'm off the subject now. It traps moisture right in here. And that moisture that's trapped in there under the sludge, it causes corrosion, and the propeller, or the propeller shaft of the crankshaft tends to break. Tyler can tell you about this too because you just did that, right?
Yep.
SB 505 and 530, if I remember correctly. It is an AD, but it references back to this. Oh, you guys remember this because do you remember what you have to do it right and get rid of the recurring? Do you remember what you have to put up on there? This is where you have to put the urethra bond on there and then stamp it what? PID. So you put the urethra bond in there, then stamp it PID. And that only means something to a couple of you, and I'm not going to explain it. So. Hannah's laughing. I don't know. I think she knows her medical terminology. No?
Oh, yes.
Anyway, bad joke. I'm sorry.
It's like erectile dysfunction, isn't it?
Pelvic inflammatory disease.
Oh, yeah.
And urethra bond is, the urethra is the thing you pee through. All right. Now it's a health class, and we didn't need to go there. All right. People who are listening on YouTube are like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Does he have Tourette's or something? Can he not say things? No, once it's there, it's got to come out. It hurts. Speeder spring. All right. Speeder spring applies spring pressure to the flyweights.
Going back down from F back to E.
No, you're right.
It's under pilot valve.
G. It's supposed to be G.
No,
No,
that's
after
not right.
pilot valve.
Listen, Michelle says I'm right, so I'm right. Okay?
A, B, C, D,
E, F, E.
E.
E, F, E.
So it's pilot valve and then speeder spring.
Yes.
So we're going to start it down.
Apply spring pressure. I mean, if it's helpful, I can go back to using like stars and asterisks and circles and squares and triangles. And then nobody argues with that because it's hard to tell what comes after a circle.
Just try for a day, Kevin.
I know. No, I know you guys. You'd be like, hey, yesterday you went circle, then square. Apply spring pressure to what? Flyweights. At least one guy in the back is paying attention. The rest of you guys are worried about my circles and squares. Steve's back there going, what the heck? He's with the program.
A circle or a square? They're kind of like the same.
All right, without the spring pressure, the flyweights would move out. And that's what position? Overspeed. What was I going to say? Move out and lift the pilot valve and lift the pilot valve Yes.
Is the governor part of the engine overhaul, or is it going to be overhauled at all? Because I'm kind of thinking of the spring. I mean, usually springs they have a certain service
All right.
life.
I like that question. The question is more or less, would you overhaul the governor every time you overhaul the engine? And I would say absolutely. And also, I would have it overhauled every time I had the prop overhauled. So I would match it with the prop. So if I sent the prop out for an overhaul, I'd probably send the governor too, unless it was just done. If I was doing an engine overhaul, I would definitely, I'm thinking on my engine, I would want, the one I built, I would definitely want to see that overhauled as well. So I don't want, for a lot of reasons. Number one, if you don't do that, and it's really a good time to do the prop usually, so it's one overhauled unit. Otherwise, sometimes you end up chasing problems. You know, you have a brand new engine and the owner's saying, oh man, my prop is constantly hunting. It's not finding its right RPM. It's running, it's out of balance. And so if you get it all taken care of at once, you're kind of happy.
Do prop shops do governors as well?
Yep. While this drawing is right up here, there's something else that's really fits in well with what we're talking about. This sludge builds up. As this sludge starts building up and starts blocking off the crankshaft, what do you think the propeller is going to start doing? Starts getting sluggish. So if somebody calls and says, hey, I've got a problem, my prop is getting really sluggish, it is not moving well, and you can tell they pull the prop handle back and it just takes a long time to do anything. Pull back on the yoke and they start to climb and the RPMs drop way off and slowly start coming back up. That's sluggish prop. So what do I do? Well, first thing I say is you got to pull that prop off and we got to de-sludge the front of the crankshaft. And a lot of times that's all, and that's cheap, right? Just pull it off and de-sludge the front of the crankshaft. If they say, yeah, and sometimes they do, I already did that. What else could it be?
Weak speeder spring?
Probably not, because then it would want to be in an overspeed. Well, but then you just apply more tension and be fine. So you just more tension than normal is really all it would take.
Not enough pressure from the pump?
Not enough pressure.
I mean, it'd be
Where?
It'd be a water pump.
From the pump. From the governor?
Yeah, from the governor.
Good answer. I like that one. That could definitely be it. Governor's starting to wear out. You're getting a lot of wear between the gears. If you have a lot of side clearance between the gears, which is this is the gear and above and below the gear, then the oil will actually roll around and fill that space and find another way out. It doesn't really want to pump well. So that's a really good choice. I like that one. So you say, hey, have you overhauled the governor a while? That's cheaper than where I'm going with this. So I'd say, well, how much time's on your engine? Oh, yeah, it's got a lot of time. It's probably getting close to TBO. Have you ever had any oil pressure problems with your engine? Yeah, as a matter of fact, I have my it's funny, my INA. A lot of guys say, my INA. What's an INA? It's an IA backwards. They call it an INA. I don't know why. So I have my INA, or ANI sometimes. Increased oil pressure. Well, my thought is this bearing up here in the front of the engine starts wearing out, and you have more and more space. It takes more and more oil to go through there. And at some point, the governors can't keep up with it. But more often than not, it's just sludge up here. All right, let's see. Without spring press flyweights, there we go. Move and lift the pilot valve. So we go without the speeder spring, we go into overspeed. I don't know how important this point is, but hey, we'll make it. The speeder spring allows the flyweights to move outward at the proper RPM and gives pilot control. The speeder spring allows the flyweights to move outward at the proper RPM and gives pilot control. Because really, all that blue knob does is it either adds pressure to the spring or takes away pressure for the spring. That's all it does. A little more pressure, a little less pressure. A little more pressure moves the flyweights in, tells it in your underspeed, a little less pressure, lets them go out, tells them you're in an overspeed, and it's going to adjust to that setting.
Is it exactly like that diagram showed with the rod with the teeth and the gear?
The rod with the teeth and the gear?
Yeah.
When you had like the 4 different speeds.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
just like that.
handles up.
Yeah. It's just like that, pretty much. All right, cockpit controls are attached to the speeder spring and vary the tension. I'm out of room here. Can I move it over?
Good.
It's done. Justin,
Yeah,
we okay?
Good.
All right.
Caught up.
Huh?
I'm caught up.
You caught up. All right. Okay, cockpit controls. Are attached to the speeder spring. We should just abbreviate SS. To the speeder spring and vary the spring tension. So more tension equals what?
Underspeed.
Yep. Or move to a higher RPM. Pilot wants more RPM. If I have less tension, equals lower RPM. Why? Because if I'm in equilibrium and I put more tension, flyweights are going to be pushed in because of the spring. It's going to tell the governor, it's going to drop the pilot valve and say, oh man, we're in an underspeed condition. Speed up, speed up. So it's going to flatten out the pitch, speed up the engine. Flyweights are going to find equilibrium. The same way if I release tension, flyweights are going to go out, lift up the pilot valve, realign the oil. As everybody's saying, wow, we're going too fast. Slow down, slow down. And so it's going to bring it back to equilibrium. All right. So I've got in my notes here to run through the operation of the Hamilton standard, which might not be a bad thing to do. Because it's kind of going through things kind of slowly. Well, we have a few minutes. We'll talk about what I got up here. This is the back of a Lycoming, but it uses, all of these governors use a special governor gasket, and you can see what's right here. And that's the special gasket. And it's got a screen that's built into it, and the screen is actually sticking up. So if you look at it laying down there, you're going to see the screen kind of bulging. And the thing about that is, on the engine, it's flat. There's no cutout for that. Governor has a cutout for it. So which way you think it goes? So no, it goes into the governor. So don't mess that up. Don't turn it around. Then you smash the screen flat. I guess it still works. I don't know. I've never tried it. But anyway, so again, back. Hey, what is this right here? Fuel pump. What do we have going on here?
It's capped off, don't worry about it.
Is it? Well, I can't tell if this is doing something. If this is,
Kinda looks like it
No, it's
might be
overboard.
down.
it kind of looks like it's part going down, but it also looks square enough that it's not. So,
It's
anyway.
probably one of those.
It was just leaking a little bit.
Yeah, it's just leaking a little bit. All right. Here's that line. It's made out of what? That stainless line with a steel fitting and a. That's aluminum right there.
No, not steel 45.
Not steel. Yeah, 45. I would want to check the airworthiness directive on that one. All right, and so here's the handle right here. And if I push it all the way forward, it's going to be in. Push it forward.
Higher.
High RPM / low pitch. Well, what if I run up the engine and as I bring the, so I'm sitting there, I got the engine, I've got the prop all the way forward and I'm running it up, a mechanic, I'm maybe getting ready to do an annual, and I bring the throttle all the way up and I come up and I'm not even at full throttle yet and I can look down and see I'm starting to touch that red line. Do I have a problem? All right. Well, maybe I'm really about that far, just a 1/100th of an inch away from being all the way forward. Maybe not. I guess the point I'm going to make here is, number one, it's very difficult because you don't want to take the throttle and go all the way forward to see what it's going to do. Would you look at that? That's a couple hundred RPM over. But if you are overspeeding, here's a little adjustment right here. That's how I knew that that's the low pitch. So that right there will set against this, and that's the low pitch. This is spring loaded to go to high pitch, it looks like.
So that's just a stop.
Yep, that's the stop right there. You adjust it just like you would adjust a throttle stop. Two things, I guess. One, this is why I don't ever like to sit next to a propeller.
That's your half an inch clearance.
Yes, but centrifugal force grew the blade a little bit.
It wasn't, it was the paint coming off of it.
Yeah.
Wiped through there.
And then I saw this on the internet. It's a Continental 220.
That's in my hometown.
This is, I was with my wife and I drove by it like last year. I'm like, I know that from the internet. It's near Napa, but what town is it exactly?
Well, it's in St. Helena.
St. Helena, that's it. Do you know this guy?
Yeah, he was actually like the old mayor of St. Helena, and it's Neiman, and he has like a whole bunch of
Yeah,
radial engines.
a whole bunch of radial stuff. It's
And give him
crazy.
$100 and he lights off, starts up one of the multi.
I don't even know the size of that. It's the largest radial they have. It's like 4 row.
360.
Yeah, there you go.
It's nuts.
The corn
And downtown, it just engulfs the whole
Yeah,
downtown with smoke. People sitting there eating their dinner.
it was pretty awesome. I was all excited. My wife's like, "Really? This is what you want to
Looks
check
like
out?"
he's actually rammed this thing a couple times, and it's like.
I don't know, just funny things I find on the internet. I'm like, that guy looks pretty enthusiastic about it. It does look like, was that counter rotating props or just two props? I don't know. Ugly car. And that's all, folks.
How does the prop have experience?